Namaskar, Satyameva Jayate. How are you all today? Hope you all are okay. Anyways, till my last lecture series, I have been describing about criminal profiling, and I have completed. Now, let me tell you, this was this task I have designed for myself in order to give the knowledge and the education of criminal profiling to all the forensic science students who will combat. You are going to combat the crime. Obviously, there is some intention are back of the mind that, while studying forensic or law, without target, without any intention, it is not justified. In crime, actus reus and mens rea is very important. Modus operandi, we have been talking about it. Guys, there is an instinct factor. Trust me, there has to be an instinct factor. Otherwise, everything will go in vain. Because unless and until you have that gut feeling saying which is right and which is wrong, and who is right or who is wrong, or not coming up with the techniques that it is possible or it is not possible, you are the person who is actually fighting with yourself. Who is that self? The doubts. Have doubt. Question. Otherwise, you cannot narrow down the search. The research will go useless unless you don't narrow it down. You don't list it down where you are going wrong. Mistakes are meant to be happen. Mistakes are decided. But what if you don't learn from those mistakes? What if again you are making a mistake? No, you are not supposed to do that. For that, you have to understand the psychology. Let's talk about forensic psychology. I am inspired. I am very much inspired by the booklets of IFS. I give my gratitude, my regards to them, because being there, they have entitled me as an expert, gold certified expert. But the doubts, I would recommend the doubts which is trying to groom me, which is trying to develop the skills. It doesn't come in a single day. Rome was not built in a day, guys. You have to make more and more brush up your skills. Then only. I've been giving influencing lectures. I've been motivating people, and thank you so much for loving me all over the world. I'm giving so much of love. I am so grateful to every one of you, whoever watching me, listening to me, and think that yes, this is helpful to solve the crime, to think. Let's talk about forensic psychology. Forensic psychology is devoted to forensic aspect of legal process in courts. The term is also often used to refer to investigative and criminal psychology. Applying psychological theory to criminal investigation, understanding psychological problem associated with the criminal behavior. Very, very acceptable. The behavioral study, I always termed it as the next article which I'm trying to write is CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, a behavioral study by Trisha Chari Chakraborty. Now, key tasks undertaken by forensic psychologists include piloting and implementing treatment programs, modifying offender behavior, responding to the changing needs of staff and prisoners, reducing stress for staff and prisoners, providing hard research evidence to support practice, undertaking statistical analysis for prisoner profiling, giving evidence in the court, advising parole boards and mental health tribunals, crime analysis. Sometimes, yes, in minor cases, this is a mental health issues. Yes. So we study the mental factor thing, and we do refer it to the mental health department. Forensic psychology is the interface between psychology and the law. So all the psychological services provided for the legal community are forensic psychological services. However, most forensic psychologists provide services which are both clinical and forensic in nature. Clinical? When a psychologist treats an individual who was emotionally traumatized by an accident, the treatment is clinical in nature, designed to assist the individual in recovering from the trauma. But when the psychologist is asked to provide a report from the court regarding the extent of the trauma and to assess the psychological damage incurred, then the psychologist is providing forensic services. Typically, forensic psychology is defined as the intersection of psychology and the law. But forensic psychologists can perform many roles, so this division can vary. In many cases, people working with forensic psychologists are not necessarily forensic psychologists. These individuals might be clinical psychologists, school psychologists, neurologists, or counselors who lend their psychological expertise to provide testimony, analysis, or recommendation in legal or criminal cases. For example, a clinical psychologist might provide mental health services such as assessment, diagnosis, and treatment to individuals who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. Clinicians might be asked to determine if a suspected criminal suffers from mental illness, or may be asked to provide treatment or to individuals suffering from substance abuse and addiction issues, just like a drug abuse or consumption of drugs, or into the cases related to narcotics department. Yeah. Another example is that of a school psychologist. While people in the profession typically work with children in school settings, a school psychologist working in forensic psychology might evaluate children in suspected abuse cases, help prepare children to give testimony in court, or offer testimony in child custody disputes. Some of the functions typically performed within forensic psychology include: number 1, competency evaluation; number 2, sentencing recommendation; number 3, evaluation of the risk or reoffending; number 4, testimony as an expert witness; number 5, child psychology evaluation. Forensic psychology is the application of psychology to the criminal and civil justice system. Many people confuse forensic psychology with forensic science, although these are too closely related, but there are many differences. Of course they have. The primary difference is that while forensic scientists are in the business of applying chemical and biological sciences to law enforcement, national security, defense, or intelligence work, forensic psychologists develop into the psychological perspective of human behavior and apply them to the legal system. Forensic psychology knowledge is used in various forms, such as in treating mentally ill offenders, consulting with attorneys, example on picking a jury, analyzing a criminal mind and intent, and practicing within the civil arena. A forensic psychologist may also choose to solely focus his or her career on research ranging anywhere from examination of eyewitness testimony or to learning how to improve interrogation methods. Another form of forensic psychology work in the public policy, where researchers can help in the design of correctional facilities and prisons. Threat of forensic psychology. Forensic psychology is a very new and exciting area. Indeed. It seems exciting because of the immense range of its applications. For instance, number one, child custody decisions. Number two, child abuse of an emotional, physical, or sexual nature. Number three, matters of competency to stand trial. Number four, victim support responsibilities. Number five, jury selection. Number six, elevating police burnout. Number seven, competency evaluations. Number eight, expert witness. Number nine, advertising legislation on public policy. Number 10, treatment of chronic offenders. Now, there is a question. What does a forensic psychologist do? A forensic psychologist is more likely to be indulged into following activities. Number one, applying psychological theory to criminal investigation. Number two, understanding psychological problems associated to criminal behavior. Number three, the treatment of criminals, including piloting and implementing treatment programs. Number four, modifying offender behaviors. Number six, responding to the changing needs of staffs and prisoners. Number seven, reducing stress from staffs and prisoners. Number eight, providing hard research evidence to support practice. Number 9, undertaking statistical analysis for prisoner profiling. Number 10, giving evidences in court, advising parole boards and mental health tribunals crime analysis. Now, what is going to be a future forensic psychology? Forensic psychology has experienced steady growth in the past 2 decades. It is predicted that research work, consultation, and clinical practices in psychology and the law will continue to grow over 10 upcoming. It's not only that they have been done previously, no, the upcoming 10 years from now. The highest demand is predicted to be working with the court, attorneys, and lawmakers. Definitely it's going to happen. Jobs will also continue to grow in colleges, universities, where most of the research is conducted. Laws are constantly changing, which can be good news for a forensic psychologist. Now, exploring different ways of dealing with the juvenile offenders. That's what I was talking about minor, the criminals who were minor, not cross age of 18, becoming a popular subject. Decisions relating to dealing with these offenders often require the expert advice of a forensic psychologist. Those who hold doctorate degrees will have many more career opportunities than those who have masters. It is almost impossible to specialize in this field with only a bachelor degree. Okay. Now, this is a very important question I must put across. How can a forensic psychologist help in investigation of a murder? An example to answer this question here, we can take an example of a murder. A man found dead in his bedroom while his family is out of town, and his neighbors found the deadly body and informed the police. The police came and found the bullet wound in the chest. No suicidal note. Remember, no note has been found near the dead body. Give me a break. questions. After this murder crime scene is arrived, what are the question you face? You face is number one, was it a really murder or a suicide? Because there is no suicide note. Second question, how can a medical examiner decide by only examining the dead body? Number three, can police get the real picture with the traditional way of investigation? This is the situation where the need of forensic psychologists come into the picture, guys. Becomes more important. No doubt police can investigate, but not with all that sophistication so as a medical examiner, and the police can acquire help from a psychologist. A forensic psychologist is more appropriate person to deal with the situation. Psychologists work in sometimes more likely a detective in the field. Psychologist plays an active role by assessing the multiple dimension and aspects of a murder case. Usually people feel reluctance to tell the truth because of the police traditional way of investigation. Psychologists can help interview and probe family and neighbors. Psychologists can access the personality type from collected information and came to the conclusion that whether the person had a personality that can commit suicide or not. Next, analyze medical records for presence and absence of mental illness. Create a profile. Perform psychological autopsy. Now, let's talk about way of police investigation. Usually police are scared of the traditional way of police investigation, shows reluctance to help in solving any case. Because of the nature of the job of police has a tendency to involve the person in case. Frequently it includes it involved the person in case, frequently include that person in the list of suspects. So instead of telling the truth and helping police to come to the real picture, people avoid necessarily. We have seen oftentimes avoid all situation and show this kind of negligence. Way of psychological investigation. As a forensic psychologist, then what? What shall I be doing in the investigation? Let's talk. On the other hand, psychologists can be very helpful in gathering the information. Through the application of psychological knowledge and principle in clinical psychological evaluation, with few exceptions, the psychologist interviews the person being evaluated and there administers a battery of tests appropriate to the referral question. Data is analyzed, a report is prepared. Typically, no other information is considered. The assumption is made that the most part is correct so that the examinee has been truthful during the interview and honest in answering test questions, and no conclusions attempt were made to look better or worse than the actual clinical picture. In forensic psychology, however, there is obvious motivation to conclusively present a distorted picture for an obvious distinctive secondary gain. To explore the real truth, forensic psychologist is required to be more careful and skillful. So forensic psychologists use different strategies to increase the objectivity and validity of opinions on psychological issues. Few of those assessment procedures are listed below. Number one, psychologists can help interview the family. Yes. For my personal recommendation, family interview is very, very needed. Forensic psychologists can gather the information through interviewing third party like close friends, neighbor, office colleagues, and other relevant people. Forensic psychologists can access the personality type from collected information, can analyze medical records for identifying the presence and absence of mental illness, create a profile, and perform psychological attempts. Thank you so much, and I will back with forensic psychology from next. Thank you so much.